This is Boxing Tickets, and we are delighted to be joined on Zoom once again with the man of the moment, Mr. J Byrne of JB Boxing Promotions. Give you obviously a couple of days to relax, obviously after a fantastic night at the stadium on Saturday night for Night of Champions. I guess obviously for anybody tuning in, sort of this is a recap obviously on the show. Guess obviously first off, Jay, your thoughts on obviously I guess your dreams to reality. When you sort of look back, obviously I'm sure you're obviously proud on what a brilliant night you put on.
Yeah, thanks for having me on again, Stephen. It was yeah, look, you don't really get to enjoy it on the night because you're running around, and then obviously in the middle of the night, well, towards the end of it, I had Glenn to deal with as well, so I had his warm ups and things. I had to get out of my clothes and into training gear for him, and then I had to go out and do the corner, so I miss fights because of that. And then obviously at the start of the night, it's always hectic when everyone's busting in the doors and I kind of running around doing stuff and organising and that. So you don't really get to enjoy the nights. It's kind of in the days after where you're being tagged and things, you're being sent videos from people who are there, and that's when you kind of look back and go, Jesus, that was looked a really good night. Like you don't get to enjoy it on the night. You don't get to really see it, how good the night is, or you don't see it as a customer. You're kind of always looking around to make sure everything's all right, and then you're seeing things you're not happy with, and you're trying to get them sorted, and it just disappears. But look at overall from the outset, from what people are saying and from what I'm hearing, it was a really really good night. Um, yeah, look, I'm very critical of myself and of the team, and I'm a nuisance to them at the best of times. Like I've seen a lot that we can improve on and that we can make better for the next one. That the watching customer wouldn't have seen, but there's an awful lot that I've seen that makes room for massive improvements, and I will be implementing them with myself and Butch met on Sunday morning. We had an hour meeting on Sunday morning at like 10:30 to go through, and we do it all the time. We go through the night before straight away, and we've already took our notes down, and we've already ordered some stuff and things to make it look better and to make things run a lot smoother. So overall, I think it was a success. I think the people, the boxing fans, I think the casual fan, and I think the families of the boxers I've got some sent some over, so I've got forwarded over some messages that boxers received. What some people that sell tickets for boxers and things received, and it does seem to have gone down very well. So I'm happy with
I always know that you are obviously critical of things. I guess it's the sacrifice you make. Like obviously, me in a standpoint doing media, I don't get to see everything. Obviously, you run them backstage, do interviews, obviously trying to catch bits of the fights, and that's part and parcel of the job that you have. That you can't be everywhere at once. And I remember coming in at the start of the night, and everybody wants to speak to you. And obviously they sometimes forget that you're running the show. You've 500 million things in your head, and I guess it's only when you sort of go home and you watch it back and you start to analyze sort of things that that's when you start to piece things together. But like if that was a perfect night for you on Saturday night, Jay, there was something wrong because there's always something
that.
that you're going to want to do better, and that's that striving for greatness. But I guess when you sort of look at the positives, obviously having a major platform like the Zone, obviously people being able to tune in all around the world. Um, Having 14 or 15 fights, like normally when you put the card together and you're going the 15 fights here, I'm going to lose a few. The only fight you lost, obviously, on the card was Dean Walsh. So 14 or 15 fights went through. So that was another major positive.
Yeah, no, look, I would like to say I put it on record that every boxer that I dealt with that boxed on the show on the night was 100% professional. Like I can't fault one boxer, and I'm not just saying that just for something to say. Every single one of them boxers were given their duties when we met or when we discussed them on the show. Finances were discussed, everything was agreed, contracts were sent, and every single boxer that boxed in that event done their job 100%. I felt every boxer on the event turned up and gave their best. I can't fault one boxer on the show. It's the first show that I've ever dealt with in the amount of time I've been in the business that every single boxer done everything that was asked of them, and they all were excellent on the night. I can't fault any of them. I don't think anyone can say such and such didn't turn up or such and such had a really bad performance and got out of jail or anything like that. I don't think that. I think everybody showed something. I think everyone showed heart, everyone showed courage. Everyone gave their absolute best to get through their fight, and that's testament to the boxers. So without the boxers, we don't have these shows.
Do you think maybe some of that could fall in line, obviously, with it being, on a big platform, it's in the stadium, it's on, obviously a lot of fighters get on the zone, but obviously, do you think some of that sort of maybe played a factor into it? Like, say if you're in the warehouse, some might not play ball as such.
Yeah, look, maybe being in the stadium, I don't think the zone played a factor because the zone only came board with a week to go, so I'm not gonna let the zone have that one on the lads. I'm not gonna look. The zone come on board a week ago. All the lads have paid up their deposits in the whole world before the zone come on the card. I had trickled it out there and I had told them that it does look very positive that there is going to be a broadcaster coming on board, but we couldn't confirm anything. So maybe that was a reason why they all done that extra little bit. But no, I think the lads maybe because it was a stadium, they seen how big of a card it was, and they didn't want to, the little injuries that would usually pop up didn't pop up and things like that. But I don't know, but I just want to let everyone know that the boxers made the night as good as it was because they all went that extra mile with, like, even now when the zone got announced there was a lot more tickets, which baffles me from the watching public because the card was the card, whether it was on TV, whether it wasn't on TV, whether it was on live stream, whether it wasn't, the card was the card, and when you announce the card as good as what we announced, people just want to go and support that. I don't understand why people don't want to go and support the card and won't buy a ticket for the card. But then when it's announced on TV, when you can actually watch it at home, oh no, I want to now go to the arena and watch it. These kids need the support without the TV. I just can't get my head around that. I think they should be more supportive of them when it's not on TV because they can't see it at home. But when they can watch it at home, people think, oh, it's on TV. I don't know if you want to get their mushes on the telly or what it is, but look. It helped once the zone was announced, the ticket sales, the remaining ticket sales went up. I know some of the lads got more sales on their tickets and things like that. So I think everyone benefited on
there. Sort of a mixed emotion sort of night for you, obviously. In the main event, obviously, Declan and Senan, obviously, who, you've been a good friend of Declan's for years. You obviously promoted both fighters and stuff as well. Like, with the main event, you're sort of, I guess, like me in a way, sort of where you can't cheer for one side. You commiserate the loser and obviously congratulate the winner, but you don't make a big fuss over either. Like, I thought probably on the night, probably Deco put an extra 50% in from probably maybe what people might have thought. They might have thought he made it tired down the straight and things like that. Maybe did come off the gas a wee bit at times, but really, really good fight. And probably it showed Deco how much that obviously, finishing off in the stadium, is probably maybe the perfect send-off for him, obviously, albeit he didn't obviously get the Irish title that he probably wanted throughout his career, but, a great send-off for him in some ways and a great main event.
Yeah, look, Deco, when he went pro, was tipped to be, I think it was the next Byrne or Dunn was the talk, he was tipped to be the next superstar in Irish boxing. And he just fell short at stages throughout his career. And, the weight, there was questions over the weight, was he really a super featherweight? Was he too big for the weight? And things like that. And then there was a lot of usual out there, the people who like to talk shit and talk bad, and they were, he's no heart, he's no chin, he's no balls, he's this, he's that, he's an Instagram boxer, he's this, he's that. He's heard them, he's seen them a whole lot. But the best thing about Saturday night was, one, Deco got the headline in the stadium, which was obviously a dream, the headline in Dublin on a big show. He headlined in Dublin in the stadium, 5 minutes from his house, on the zone. And anyone that spoke and said all them things to him about him over the years got all that thrown back in their faces. Because I don't know what your opinion is, but my opinion was he showed the skills that we knew he had. Maybe not as quick as he was back in the day, but then again, he's 10 kilos. So that plays a part, and the speed and things like that. I thought he showed his boxing IQ was excellent. I thought he showed great heart. I think he showed that he could have tremendous shape. He was fit enough for 10 rounds. Yes, he was never going to keep the pace he started off at. He got caught with some shots. He fought when he had to fight. He boxed when he had to box. And Senan is no easy customer. Senan comes forward. He's relentless. He puts pressure on. And I thought Deco would. I think Derek Ahern said afterwards they were delighted, and that was the best Declan that people had seen in years. So, in my opinion, he's gone out in style. He went out fighting. There was no, and there was questions, and I had questions. I worried that he wouldn't have had the tank for the last few rounds because in over the years there has been questions over is he fit enough for the likes of the 8s and the 10 rounders and things like that. And after his performance against Jake Tinkling, he got the win. He was so critical of himself. He boxed well in stages, but he did tire a lot near the end, and he kind of got a little bit lackluster and things like that. And the question mark where was he going to be able to go for another 2 rounds against Senan? And I did have my doubts that, would he get broken down in the later rounds and would he tire out and things? And he didn't. And he went out fighting, and when he looks back, he lost by a point in Dublin in the main event, live on the zone. There's no shame in going out on that, is there really? If he went out and got chinned in the first round or two, or whatever you'd say, not a great way to end their career, but there's no shame in losing the way he lost. And there's people out there that said he won the fight. There's a lot out there online saying that he won the fight. So, he didn't shame himself whatsoever. He answered a lot of questions that people have said over the years, and I'm so proud of him, I have to say, as a friend and as the manager for the last part of his career. Very, very proud of him.
I guess, I think that the initial thing is Senan obviously will move back down to 140, obviously. One Celtic, one Irish, defended the Irish at won the Celtic at 140, won the Irish, and then defended it at 147, which isn't his actual proper weight. Is that the plan sort of now? Like, I know Senan obviously said to me afterwards, like, when I go and sit away with my team and sort of look at the options, like, he's past domestic level now. Like, I know Lee Reeves had sort of put out a post to say, congratulating you on the show, and obviously about Senan things like that, maybe potentially at 140, but like, I don't know what your view is, but like, Senan doesn't need to do anything more domestically.
Yeah, I get that. I understand that as well completely, and I would agree. But we got to look at what is next for Senan. There's options there. He's always wanted to win the Irish title at 140. The fight really should have happened last year. I don't know what Senan's opinion is on that now. There is an offer gone to Senan. I'm a part of the show in Galway in the summer. I'm helping out with the running of that. There were meetings yesterday with the team, and we've had a conversation with potential fights for the card and things like that, and one of them involves Senan, and it's a big fight, and there could be more on the line than an Irish title, so it could be a domestic opponent, but at a bigger level, at a higher level. So there's an offer gone to Senan. We discussed it. I agreed something yesterday. It's gone to Senan. With a potential fight this summer, which again will be live on the zone again. So let's see how that pans out over the next few days.
Would that be Kieran Malloy, or would it be somebody else?
No, it won't be Kieran Malloy. It'll be back at 140. He is going back to 140. That has been discussed. That has been mentioned. There was the opportunity to fight Kieran Malloy, but look, he's not a 147. In my opinion, Kieran Malloy is a very, very strong 147. I don't see the benefit of putting Senan into a fight with Kieran Malloy at 147 because Senan is a 140 and Kieran's a very strong 147. So as a manager, it doesn't make sense for me to put Senan in that fight. Financially, yes, there is gain in the financial side of it, but I did offer it to Senan because the offer has come. I'm obliged as a manager to offer it to Senan, but Senan has clearly stated, as a team have clearly stated, they only hung around at 147 because the Deco fight was postponed, and they just wanted to get that out of the way. And that is out of the way, and he done his job, really good the weekend. And now his goal is to go back to 140. So the plan will be to go back to 140. And as I said, there's an offer gone across. Lee Reeves would be in a conversation, yes, 100%. There's no problem there. But the thing about it is, the offer that's come in is not Lee Reeves, and it's something that we are looking at the minute. That should be we'll know on that in the next couple of days.
Sort of in the build up, I guess everybody was sort of talking of Peter Carr and Daniel Sullivan, potentially being the fight of the night. It probably worked opposite in a way, obviously for what the fight was 3-5 rounds, but obviously I thought your own brother, obviously against Lopez, like I don't know what obviously your opinion obviously was in the fight, but prior to it, obviously when you're planning out and stuff like that, but like you just give them a 2v2 box, a phone box, and they were happy just to stand probably not good for you in some ways, obviously to watch your brother obviously having a war like that in a ways, but what a fight that was, and fitting off as the main event, and probably proud in some ways. I know you're not obviously you're angry with the results. You thought that Glen had done enough, but when you sort of look back on it and you see, you know, there was no easy way for Glen to win that Celtic title. Like that's probably the hardest way you could win the belt. Some people win these belts and they win them easy. You know, that was if Glen had got the nod on Saturday night, that's probably the toughest fight you'd have had to win a Celtic title.
Yeah, well, look, I don't know what people are. I don't know what people's opinions are, but in my opinion, Glen took 3 or 4 open rounds. I thought that he actually took 4, but he definitely took 3 or 4 open rounds, and I thought he boxed excellent. I thought he was really good to the body. I knew the game plan for the man. I knew he was going to come forward. I knew he was relentless. I said it to Glen. The first day I walked into the gym after he accepted the fight, I said to I said to Glen, this camp is all about boxing. You got to box at range. You got to box at range. When he comes in, you got to hit him. But you got to move. You got to hit him. You got to move. And the pace set out at the start was ridiculous. It was way too fast. There was never ever going to be 8 rounds at that pace because it was just ridiculous pace. It's so fast. I thought Glen was very, very good. I thought he showed people that he can box as well as fight. I thought some of his work was beautiful. I thought his body work was really good. I thought at times he was popping off lovely little shots, small little uppercuts, and getting out of there and things. But his legs obviously had to slow down. I thought what lost in the fight was the sitting on the ropes. I thought he took too much time on the ropes. He's never done that. He's never done it in sparring. He's never done that in camp. So I don't know where that came from. I'd say I could only think that he was getting tired and he hadn't got the energy to be constantly moving. And I can think that's where it is. I do believe that he won the fight. I do believe that was in Spain and Glen was a Spanish fighter, Glen 100% got the decision because, in my opinion, when a round is very close, and there was very close rounds in the fight, when a round is very close between two guys, and one is a Dublin boy in Dublin fighting in front of Irish judges against a Spaniard coming over here, the Dublin lad should get the nod if it's a very close round because it's one of them rounds they go, oh, I think they should side that. To think that one of the judges only get playing 3 rounds, in my opinion, was criminal. I think it was absolutely criminal. I don't think anyone could have thought he only got 3 rounds. And that's genuine. That's how I felt. So I was very annoyed. I didn't think that he walked at the fight. I didn't think he won the fight easy by any stretch of the imagination. He didn't win any more than 5 rounds. But there was close rounds. I think your man definitely won 2 rounds. Definitely clear 2 rounds, maybe 3. There was a couple of close rounds in there. But as I said, when it's a close round, very close round, it's a nip and tuck round, could go either way. I always believe that the home boxer, should always get the nod like that. It's not a given, but when it's a nip and tuck round and there's nothing in it, who do you give it to? I don't know. I was very annoyed over that. Now again, then watched it back. He said, "Look, I can see a draw as well," but he said, "I do think I've done enough in 5 rounds to win the fight." So I haven't even got time to look at the back yet, but I will be looking at the back. Glen wants a rematch straight away. He wants it straight away. However, he is going to box in the summer on the same card as Senan. Potentially will box on the Cian card, and we had already sent an offer to James Freeman's team about the James Freeman fight because obviously that's been brewing a little bit in the background. So there's two opportunities there on the table. It will come down to financial, like to fly these guys in from Spain and things like that, and putting them up for a few days and stuff. It's costly, so it will all come down to financial gains on it. But the fight will happen again because I know Glen could beat him. I think Glen showed that he was a better boxer. I think the commentary said, Glen was a better boxer. Your man was just relentless. He comes forward, and I think the fight will only benefit Glen, and I think he showed massive improvements from his last fight, and that's what it's all about. I mean, he is upset, but again, he didn't lose. It was a draw. He didn't lose, and on another night he could have took that belt home and he won. And he showed people he has a chin. He showed he has heart. He shows he has courage. He shows he can fight. But I think the most important thing was he showed he can box.
Another Celtic champion, obviously in the stable, obviously Paul Loonam. Obviously a lot of online sort of thing after, just sort of saying that Myles was robbed, and like I didn't see enough of the fight, Jay, for me the I guess I'll be honest sometimes to see it how it is, but like I know Paul had said going into the last round he felt that he needed to win the last round to win the fight, so I think he maybe um had himself 4-3 up going into the last. So I think he maybe next at 5-3. You probably didn't see enough of the fight as well because you obviously getting Glen ready. But you know, I guess in a good way,
Um,
obviously for Paul, pretty much still a relatively new pro. Myles obviously stepped it up, like from what we've seen of him in the stadium, when he obviously fought in the stadium last October. But a great fight, which sort of built off the weigh-in with obviously the Myles grabbing him trying to grab him by the throat. It really built into the fight, and like it was a cracking fight for the Celtic strap.
yeah, again, another good fight. You don't get belts easy. Um, I did watch a good bit of the fight. I was able to watch a lot of it because I knew the Glen Lynch was going in, and I had gone out and got Glen ready, and I didn't see much of Petr and Daniel. I didn't see any of that really. I was watching that in the back because I was getting them kind of somewhat ready and starting to get them ready, and then I went out and watched Paul, and I went back in then right at the end of Paul's fight, and I had the time for Glen. I kind of knew Glen Lynch wasn't going to stop that guy because he's tough and durable. So I said, right, well, I'll have 15 minutes to go in and do the pads and get Glen ready like that. So I did get to see it. I'll be honest and say, and I said at the Paul's team when I went into the ring, because they asked me how did I see it. I had it a draw. That was the way I had it. I had it very very close draw. But again, when there was no robbery because like it was nip or tuck. As I said, I had it a draw. I could have went maybe either way, and I'm sure anyone that's honest that watched the fight could say that. But you can't say someone was robbed when a fight is very close. Robbery is when someone single-handed, like Sean McCollum goes to America and punches the head off someone for the whole fight and gets robbed. That's robbery. But when a fight is very, very close, that's why I can't say on the night it is a Glen was robbed. But he wasn't robbed. It was a very close fight. It was the same with Paul and Myles. It was a very close fight. So it wasn't a robbery. It's what did you like? What did you see? One thing I'll say is from day one when I accepted this fight, when I spoke to Ian Cochran, I said it's a good fight. I said people won't think it's a good fight because Myles hasn't shown anything as a professional. But I think Myles basically introduced himself to the pro don't mean an awful lot because Myles' record is not great at all in his first three fights. But on Saturday night, first four fights, but on Saturday night he showed that he is still the Myles Casey that he has been for the last 10 years. So ideally, I'm sure everyone would love to see it again. It's a conversation that will be had. Potential that could happen this summer, or it could happen at the end of the summer. Towards the end of the year. But again, you got to speak to both teams. I don't think Myles' team will have any issue with a rematch. I think they'll want the rematch. And no, Paul, if we can get the Irish title on the line, I think Paul would jump on that because it was a great fight, and I know Paul will go back and watch it. He will see how close it was. He won't be happy with how close it was, and he'll implement the changes that is needed to make sure he wins more convincingly next time.
I think from the initial, from what I'm sort of hearing, obviously I'm not sure if it's how official it is, but it looks like Farrell is going to vacate. Obviously, when I spoke to Ian Cochran, obviously in Belfast after Paddy McCrory's card, he was sort of mentioning maybe towards a Commonwealth sort of title in some way. I guess everybody's always, and here in Belfast, everybody's all thinking of this Crocker Donovan card of it, with the rematch in Windsor, and they all want to be a part of it. I know Matty Borland said he would fight anybody on that card. But obviously, if they look at different options, there's plenty of options there, which is healthy for the super bantamweight division. But I guess for you, I guess for everybody, sort of, their opinions on that fight. There's history from the fight. They could rematch for the Irish title. Whether you bring Paul home to Offaly, whether it's in Galway, whether it's a main event on maybe another stadium show or something like that. But there's plenty of options, which is good. It's good options rather than having no options.
Yeah, well, on the Dublin Crocker, and I think it's great. I think it's gas to see all these fighters jumping out. Oh, I'll fight him on the Dublin Crocker card. Oh, I'll fight him on the Dublin Crocker card. If you're willing to fight someone, you win the fight someone. Doesn't matter where it is. Simple as that. Doesn't matter where it is. So boxers need to realise that there's not an awful lot of activity in Ireland. You know what I mean? So we're lucky to get a slot on any show instead of coming out with oh, I'll fight him on the Crocker Dublin card, or like the Crocker Dublin card will be matched. It'll be made. It'll be done by matchrooms, matchmakers, and I'm sure Jamie will have a say in that as well. But like, if you're saying you're willing to fight someone, you're willing to fight them. End of story. Doesn't matter where it is. Doesn't matter what show it's on. Beggars can't be choosers. Boxers need to remember that. There is options there. Yeah, of course there is, and there's other options out there. So I don't know why Ruan is vacating the belt. It makes no sense in my opinion. Vacate the belt when you've got it, when you've got something else concrete. So if an offer comes in for a different belt or a different title, that brings them up another level. I'd say 100% then vacate the belt. But until you have that offer, I wouldn't vacate the belt. I'd be defending it. But then again, that's me. I just don't see if he vacates the belt and he doesn't get another offer. Where does his career go? Because he doesn't have anything. He doesn't have any speed. He doesn't have any value. And he's a very good boxer. He's shown that in his last few fights. So you're not going to go looking for him and say, oh, do you want to fight my guy when he has been very good in his last few fights? So I wouldn't be vacating the belt. I'd be defending the belt. But if that's their plan, that's their plan. Maybe they have already got an offer on the table. I'm not sure. But again, look, we will be having another few shows before the year's out, 2 or 3 shows before the year's out. There is a Galway card that I am working officially with GBM on now. After a meeting yesterday, I will be working on the card with them. We have a show in Belfast in the summer, and I'm waiting at the stadium to confirm the date to have a show before the year's out in the stadium. And we'll probably have two small ones in the Red Cow, because again, you got to keep building the guys on the smaller shows to get them ready for the big shows. And again, I won't come back to the stadium until I have a card full of domestic fights again, because it worked last week, and if it's not broken, I'm not fixing it.
Speaking obviously of another champion, obviously on the night, that's 2 shows back to back. He's come on the JB promotion show and obviously done the business. Daniel O'Sullivan. I think at times, Jay, people would maybe underrate Daniel. Obviously, I know probably going in, people obviously favoured Petr, obviously, the power and everything else. But like Daniel, just as a way of obviously, I don't know whether it's down to his tactics from obviously Pascal in the corner, or obviously it's just his years of being on the trade, sort of working corner and stuff like that. But I thought Daniel was exceptional on Saturday night. He started off working the body, slowing Petr down. Obviously, and Peter's afterwards it's come out that Peter's obviously broken his hand and stuff like that. But I thought Daniel navigated the fight very well, and he took some of Peter's shots clean and still come forward. I thought, Daniel Sullivan was exceptional tonight.
Daniel is exceptional. He wasn't just exceptional on the night. He was exceptional against Sean Murray as well. He was exceptional in Mayo last year as well. He is an exceptional boxer. He's a great boxer. He's relentless. He comes in absolute tip-top condition. He's a challenge and a test for anybody. He does what he does, and he's very, very good. I rate him very highly, and he's shown in his last 2-3 outings the level that he's really at. So I wouldn't be shocked by it. The question was always going to be, and everyone said it, could Daniel stand up to Peter's power? And I didn't get to see a ringside, but I did get to see a backstage, and it looked like Petr landed some heavy hooks early. I think he caught him flush on the chin on, and Daniel stood up. And everyone in the back said, "Oh, Petr could be in trouble now. He's after taking his best shot." But again, that's what happens sometimes. You go in against someone, and if Petr was confident that he could outbox Daniel as well, and whatever and whatnot. But it's different when you're in there. It is different when you're in there. It had the makings of a cracking fight, a great fight, and it was a great fight. People would have probably thought the Paul Loonam and Myles Casey fight might have been a bit boring because they were 2 very small fellas, and 2 of them coming from a heavy amateur background, so a few people said to me that would be kind of like a chess match. It'd be a little bit like an amateur fight. That was a brilliant fight. That was a brilliant fight. That was a really, really good, tasty fight. And the Peter and Daniel fight was built up to be the absolute war, two lads killing each other for the whole fight, and it didn't. This is boxing. You just don't know what to expect in boxing. It can go either way in the night. You just don't know. But no, credit to Daniel. Very, very polite, very professional guy to deal with, and I'm sure Daniel will be seen again on that cards.
I'm just looking obviously at the timer here and saying we've just under 7 minutes left, and we haven't even got through a lot of the card. I'm not sure what you're like for timings, but just obviously if you're not all right for timings, obviously you had two Queensbury fighters in the card, obviously Owen Lavin and Stephen Cairns, and both producing stoppage wins. I believe obviously Stephen Cairns took home the knockout bonus in the night.
He did, yeah. He got the knockout bonus sent to him, yeah. Credit to him, what a knockout, what a performance. He cost me a lot of money on Saturday night because the opponent, because he got knocked out and he wasn't safe, we decided to not let him fly on that flight because he was on an early flight home. He said, no, we weren't having that. So we had to rebook new flights for him as well to fly home with Joe Parry later in the day because we wanted someone to travel with him to make sure he was okay getting home and things like that. So Stephen didn't only take the knockout bonus, he also hit us for extra last minute flights to London aren't cheap. But he deserved it. He's a great kid, an absolute, you couldn't say a bad word about Steve. He's an honour to work with. He's gone far and again. He's his attitude, his mentality, the way he deals. He's a class kid.
It's one of them sometimes, isn't it? When a fighter sacrifices and moves himself away from home, like obviously from Cork, over I think it's Sheffield, Dave's gyms, and like when you move away so far from home and you've that sacrifice, they're going to go somewhere. It's the same as like Pierce O'Leary, is doing at the moment. Obviously, Carl Frampton done in the past. When somebody makes that sacrifice to move away from home, they're going to be a special talent.
Yeah, everything about him, his whole from the second I spoke to him first to yesterday when I texted him to say that his bonus had been transferred. Everything was just impeccable. Like, you couldn't ask for better people to deal with. He was an absolute diamond, a gentleman, and what a fighter! What a fighter! He's a talent. I was delighted to be able to bring him back to Ireland because I don't think Ireland knew about him. I think he's picked up a lot of fans now after the weekend, and I know I could see in his interview with yourself that was at least how happy he was to fight back in Dublin in a packed arena, and that meant a lot to me to be able to do that for a high-profile fighter that is boxing on Queensbury and bigger shows and the whole lot. To see the smile on his face and how happy he was to come home and box on one of their shows, it meant a lot to me as well.
And obviously Owen Lavin as well. Like I could sort of see the stoppage coming. I was actually recording it, Jay, because I knew it was going to be, a brittle body shot, but I sort of stopped recording to move myself closer to the ring so I could get a better, more clearer picture. And a couple of seconds I had stopped my camera. He delivered obviously a perfect left hook to the body, and the fight was all over.
Yeah, it was brilliant because we were panicking at the time because of the TV time was coming. We were getting very close and we needed. We only had like 4 minutes or something from when the bell went. I think 4 minutes or 5 minutes or something to get young. If we were to get young Ruben in before the TV and myself pushing Jane, we were back and forth around the ring and the bell went. We were all glued and saying, "Come on, get him out, get him out, get him out, get him out!" And then bang, you got him out. And then even before killed for the photos, I said to Anthony Crowley, I said, "Anthony, do me a favour with it." I said, "Make these photos quick." I said, "We only have 2 minutes to get the next fighter in to make the TV broadcast time work." And he's like, "Yeah, 100%." Photos. He was rushed through the photos and he was standing there looking to try and get other people. And Anthony just like, "Come out of the ring." He's very funny now, I'd say. But look, I'll be honest, and I told on. I wasn't happy with the opponent choice. I didn't pick that opponent. It's the only opponent on the card I didn't pick. I wasn't happy with it. But it worked out brilliant for us in the end. But I would have liked him to put him in with a Jordan Graham or someone like that was going to bring him rounds and teach him stuff on the job. You know what I mean? But again, another nice kid to deal with. Really nice kid to deal with. Having Anthony Crowley in the building as well. Really nice guy. I've got to know Anthony a lot over the last few months, and an honour to have him in the building as well, along with the likes of Dave Caldwell and that. So that was great for our show,
I know that obviously Owen had said afterwards, obviously when he first turned over, everybody does this sometimes in the interviews and stuff like that. They try to get him to speak of home and obviously speaking of of Mayo and stuff like that. But now you realise it's like there's no point trying to rush it at the very start of your career, because at this stage, for him to headline in Castlebar or something like that, where Ray Millett obviously headlined his last show, for him to headline there, they have to have a fight it's worthwhile to do so, other than just for the sake of it. It's like when Kieran Malloy went home to Galway that first time, there was no real sort of, in some ways, there's no real relevance to it because there was no big title on the line. It was sort of a fight you're sort of expected to win. You're not sort of put in that acid sort of test. So when he does come home, he probably wants it to have a special meaning. So whether it's an Irish title fight, whether it's some type of European belt, he wanted it to be in that way.
Yeah, no, look, Owen's a good kid. He's a talented boxer. He has the perfect backing. He's managed by Anthony Joshua. He's promoted by Frank Ward. Like, look at them boys won't do anything silly. They'll do it right. You know what I mean? They're them guys at the top of the game. So I'm sure if they're bringing Owen home, they'll bring him home at the right time. And I say they'll be probably, if they're going to bring him home, do a homecoming, they probably more than Irish title on the line. You know what I mean? I think he's something bigger by the time they bring him home. And then again, they might even like bringing him home. It may not be Castlebar, maybe the Tree Arena or somewhere like that.
I'm just looking here, Jay. It
It has
sends
to
a
make
man.
sense. It has to make sense financially to bring people home, and to bring people to Castlebar and to bring people to Galway is hard work. It is hard work because the transport and things from Dublin Airport over there, it's a big bill, and there's no one close to there, so everyone has to stay in hotels, and the hotel bills go through the roof and things like that. And then you have to get venues that are big enough to make money financially and things, and then you're bringing opponents and sanctioning bodies again. It's all pricey. So
Just picking this back up with Jay, it's sort of timed well. It would sort of going to be through 7 of the fights in the card. I guess anybody that sort of watches our conversations, Jay, we always go in depth. There's nothing quick, and sometimes that's why we can do it in Zoom, because you wanted to obviously let the hair down sort of a wee bit obviously afterwards on Saturday night, before we sort of touch, I guess, on the 7 fights we sort of haven't covered so far. Probably an important part of the show that probably sometimes people forget. It's obviously the sponsors you have in the background. Obviously, um, you know, times have been tough. Obviously, that's your first show since November, and obviously a big show to come back on. But these sponsors obviously have got behind you since the start of JP Promotions started, and obviously ones that come on recently are the backbone of obviously of what everything that you do.
yeah, 100%. Without the sponsors, you'd be lost, especially when what happened in February, because we did take a big bang in February when the shows went, and it couldn't be helped. But sponsors help. Sponsors make life a lot easier for us. Tan Me, Halfway Cabs, 4x4 Blanchardstown, Boylan's Buses, and That Prize Guy are our 5 sponsors, our 5 main sponsors. And then for fight nights, we receive fight sponsors. And you'll see them on the screens, and they get shout outs before fights, and fights are brought to you by them sponsors. And we had some of them the other night, and it's great. It helps with everything. It just makes life so much easier. It helps, and it makes life just much smoother. For it covers additional costs and such.
Like it hasn't been, I know me and you I nearly speak to you more than I speak to my missus, and you probably speak to me more sometimes than you speak to your own missus. But like, it's been a tough few months. The 2 cancelled cards. Unfortunately, one of them was obviously out of your control, obviously after the passing of John Cooney. But like, for anybody sort of within this boxing game, Jay, and I know, me and you are as passionate probably sometimes to come, but like, what happened obviously with John Cooney, I guess for anybody in the sport, whether you're a coach, whether you're a fighter, whether you're a promoter, it got everybody rechecking themselves and stuff like that. Like, I know with any boxer that passes in the sport, like, you have to sort of sometimes go back and go, what am I doing this for? And I've had them conversations myself, because being in the Ulster Hall at night and seeing what happened, nothing untoward from the British Boxing Board or the corners or anything like that, but just seeing what happened in the fight, it gets you to reevaluate things. And it wasn't probably easy to sort of cancel your show on the Devonish a week after, but that shows the testament of the person that you are, Jay, that you were the one that said to the British Boxing Board more than anything that, look, as a mark of respect for John, because he was going to get buried in the same day, we're not going to go with this show because it just doesn't sit right for you, particularly as you have been a fighter, a fan, and a promoter of the game.
Yeah, look, it wasn't a good time at all, and thankfully we did cancel the show because sadly John's passing it was in around the same time we were going to open the doors. So like if we had a battle through it and said, look, we'll go with it and we'll just do our best. And I know the Northern Board weren't going to be working the event obviously because they were all still obviously in shock of what happened the week before. So like, to even contemplate going and getting British judges and officials in from across the water would have, going run over the show and then poor John passed in at the time you're opening your doors. It's like it wasn't right. Sometimes you do what's right. Life isn't about money. It's not all about money. Some people are money driven, and don't get me wrong, we all like a few bob. You stupid if I didn't say that. I'm just sitting here saying I don't care about money. I don't care such about money, but we all like money, and money makes life a little bit easier. You don't have money stress can be a killer for some people, but it just wasn't right money. The hardest part of cancelling that show wasn't that actual show. It was the fact that we had just lost Dublin, which was reasons without our control. We had done everything we do. We went to a venue, we viewed a venue, we walked the venue, we booked the venue. It was the people who we booked the venue through didn't do their thing. They didn't go to Dublin City Council the way they're supposed to. It's like when we booked the National Stadium. It's booked. The National Stadium now has to go contact the Geraghty and people like that to let them know there's a boxing event on and so on and so forth. The people who we booked the other venue through didn't do their due diligence, and that's what caused that was the hardest part of cancelling Belfast. It wasn't the cancelling of the Belfast show, it was the fact that we had 2 in a week go. And when you're after printing all the tickets and designing all the posters and booking venues, paying deposits and stuff, and we paid loads of flights. We paid 90% of the flights were paid. Hotels were booked, non-refundable deposits and so on. Bar the Balmoral were really, really good. They were absolute diamonds to deal with. They were really good to us in the cancellation, and I would like to that's why I reach out and tell them they can all reach out and let them get our name out there because they were excellent to deal with in regards to cancellation. But there was a lot of stuff, and so was the Devonish complex. But there was a lot of stuff that couldn't be refunded, and they hit with all them charges. But again, it is only money, and that's it. It's money. Life is more important than money, and doing what's right is more important than money. And some people don't do what's right at a lot of times, but at a time like that, you must do what's right, and if you don't, you shouldn't be really in the sport,
I think obviously people, I know you get a lot of praise and stuff for doing it at times because it's not easy. Like, any show gets cancelled, there's costs, it obviously still to be paid for. And as you say, there is more to life than money. But, I guess the good thing to sort of come out of, well, obviously there's not a good thing to come out of anything in that situation, but they have, your first show of the year on the zone, packed out Cardigats. I think, if I'm right in thinking, the last time the stadium was sold out was 2015, and Jamie Cullum's main event, and it was a fight of the year winner, I think, against Granios, I think it was. Me and names sometimes, but I think it's like 10 years, so like that's a big boost for you, and the fact that like the first show in 10 years to be sold out in the stadium, that sort of papers over the hard few months you've had.
Yeah, no, it was great. It was great. Like it was it was great to do it. It was great to be there. And we're not going to get ahead of ourselves. So a lot of people saying, "Oh, that's it. You'll never go back to the warehouse. You're on the big time." I hate big time. We're not the big time at all. We're still babies in this game. You know what I mean? People need to realize that. You can do one great show and then you may never do another good show. Boxing is a strange business. It's about building. We will be going to the small shows. And we will be because that's where we build up the fighters to go to the stadium to have the big fights. It's not going to be stadium every show because you'll never sell it. People get bored of it. Because we'd have to start building the fighters, the ones that lost will have to be rebuilt. The prospects that aren't at that level, they have to be built. So we build them on the smaller shows where the costs aren't as big. And then when we have them all built up and ready to go, we make our matches, we make our 4 or 5 domestic matches, and away we go again. And we do another stadium show because the interest is there, and then we can reach out and try to broadcast and on that. And again, we go again. And then now you've got another level So you had a first crop of them there last week. You get your next crop of them, and then hopefully maybe week or two of them by the end of the year. If not, then early next year you've got another crop. So all of a sudden you've got 3 or 4 groups of fighters that are at that level, but they've come through and they've won. And so then you can start maybe bringing in international titles, sanctioning bodies, and things like that. And that's what I said. My plan next year was to hopefully face that near the 3 Arena or something like that. So again, we need to stay grounded. The lads need to stay grounded. Anyone, and I'm hoping the lads won't let it get to their head that they boxed on the big stage last week and on the zone and the whole lot. And they won't see going to the Devilish or going to the warehouse or going to smaller venues as I want to box here, because if they do, they can head off now and box somewhere else and go try to get someone else to guide them, because it's all about learning. It's all about keeping yourself grounded. Nobody has completed anything. Nobody has made it such. People are saying, oh, you made it now. No, you haven't made it. We're back to basics. We're back to the basics. Simple things. Doing the simple things. Doing the small shows, where the shows won't be as entertaining as last week. And it will be entertaining, but it won't be as entertaining as last week. But that's where we just need to keep grounded, keep building, and them nights will come.
Obviously, recapping the second part of the show, obviously, if someone's still here at this stage and obviously tuning into us, that they're probably as passionate as we are, but Richie O'Leary and Sean Murray, like, I know obviously I seen Sean obviously afterwards, and obviously Richie's interview I'm about to do a clip of after this. By the time people's watching this, it'll be out now. But like, Richie was obviously concerned about Sean afterwards because he truly beat him up. The fight, like, the judges' scorecard sort of give it a 3-round fight each, but obviously in the 2 knockdowns won Richie the fight. But like, there was no loser in that fight, Jay. And I know we keep banging over that drum, but when someone steps up to the plate, they fight another domestic fighter. There is no loser. Yes, there's a loser in terms of result, but they deserve that respect because they've got in there. They're happy to take that test, and Sean only learned from that as well.
Sean wants to fight. Sean just wants to fight. Look at both lads don't do tickets. That's the problem. They don't do big tickets. Sean was fighting a domestic fight on the zone, and he only sold 20 tickets, 30 tickets. So not much more Sean can do. He has to fight. If he wants to box, he has to fight against people 50-50 or in a weight corner. It was a 50-50 today because Richie doesn't sell tickets either. But Richie's now put himself into a position where he's eligible for a Celtic title. He's worthy of a Celtic title. So he has it. And look, this is like Daniel O'Sullivan. Daniel hasn't got a ticket fan base. He struggles. So that's why Daniel has been in the away corner twice in the last 2 shows. But he just keeps winning in the away corner. But that sadly is boxing, So it's winner stays on, and Sean lost, so he has to go and start winning. If he can, he may have to now dig deep and try to get a journeyman win if he wants, or it'll be go again another 50-50. And look, Sean doesn't care about losing. I don't blame him. Like, he cares about losing, he doesn't want to lose, but he doesn't care about a record. He just wants to fight. He wants to be a meaningful fight. And I know Sean's dream when he went to sign for me was to fight on Sky Sports, the zone, and he fought in the zone, really. So I'm sure he's happy with that. I know he's upset with losing. He is upset with losing. I was talking with the car park tonight, and I just told Sean, look, you got more out of that fight. Your stock has risen more in that fight than it would have been if you had to come in and hold over someone in a round or two.
I totally agree with that. And obviously, I always spoke to Sean afterwards, and I know he's going to be dejected because when you have that big platform in his own, that was the moment he was seeing the chance to bounce back. And I was just saying, look, you learn from these things. You don't move backwards. Don't be upset with yourself. Yes, you're going to be upset that you didn't get the win, but you can learn from it and you come back. People's had these setbacks in life. Like, we just obviously had Rory McIlroy, obviously has just completed the Grand Slam, and in golf, like, probably one of the most iconic sort of moments that we'll probably maybe have in our lifetime. But like, even through 10 or 11 years of trying to chase that Masters title, and it never happened, kept working, people doubted him, and he got there. So there's a motivational thing for anybody that's going, if you really believe you're going to get somewhere, keep trying, keep knocking the door, and it will come.
Exactly. But like, what people have to realize, well, some people just do box because they love the sport. Some people go into the sport and they don't have aspirations to be a world champion. They don't have aspirations to be European champion. Like a Celtic title or Irish title would be a dream for them. That was like me when I came into the sport. So I didn't care if I lost the fight. For playing football, we can make you win matches, you lose matches. I felt that was the same in boxing. I didn't give a shit. You know, I just wanted to fight. I wanted to fight the best. I wanted to test myself. I wanted to get to the highest platform I could get to. I wanted to fight the best people I could fight against. I didn't care if I win, I didn't care if I lost. You know what I mean? Picked up a couple of titles along the way, defended titles along the way. That doesn't matter. I look back at my career and look at memories, and Sean can be the same. It's not always about chasing the dream to be a world champion. Look at the percentage of people that become world champions. Elite got medalists in the Olympics and things. Boxing, they don't become world champions. We've seen Geraghty bail out the other night of the sport, who was one of Ireland's greatest amateurs. He won every domestic amateur title you could think of. I think 12 Irish titles. He boxed around the world. He's part of this camp, that camp. He's fought for European titles in the program. He bowed out with his highest accolade in the sport was a Celtic title. But, does that mean he was a bad boxer? Does that mean nothing bad with him? No, it doesn't. He had a career that he can look back on all the big fights he had, all the arenas he fought in, and so on and so forth. Sometimes it's just about loving the sport and loving boxing. It doesn't always have to be about chasing the dream of this and chasing it. Maybe the dream is fighting. The dream is being in a fight, being a part of the boxing community, being on these shows. Maybe that's their dream. It's not always about chasing belts and chasing world titles, So that's why I think that's the way Sean is,
Speaking obviously of someone that seems to be on a sort of similar mental, all for the fans, all for the entertainment. Podge Collins, like he said, obviously afterwards, it's like if it wasn't for these fans coming and roaring and shouting at me, giving them entertainment moments, I wouldn't be doing this, and that's what it all boils down to. It's like the fighter has to have a reason for doing it. His reason is he's fighting for his friends and his family. He says, look, I could have a six, I could comfortably easily go through maybe somebody and win Byrne and points, but I want to have a war. I want to come and entertain. And without that, there is no purpose. So like he's that similar model. He's not thinking of belts and dreams. He's people maybe looking at Steve Collins and going as Podge Collins, the next sort of wave of that. He's going, I'm just here for the fans.
Exactly. He's enjoying it. He was training in the boxing club. He's lost loads of weight. So we said, look, let's have a go with this. Again, he loves it. He enjoys it. He's a great fan base behind him. His father pushes him. The whole gym pushes him. He's a really nice guy. He's a lovable guy. He's a fella that the fans like to see. And again, let him live his dream. This is his dream. He's being a part of big nights. He's getting to bring fans together, bring people together, have fun. Again, different type of career. He's not chasing world titles. I'd say Podge is the kind of person, look, what happens. If I can get a belt or two, it'd be great. If I can get a belt, I can even fight for a belt. So, again, it's not always about chasing the dream of being a world champion. And a lot of the people that are real in the sport don't come in and say, shouting him, we're going to be a world champion. People look and go, you go over. You know what I mean? So, Podge is a great kid. He's a great kid to deal with as well. Really good for him.
Speaking obviously of someone that maybe else is potentially ready for a Celtic title, obviously Oisin Treacy obviously comes through. Obviously Octavian Gratii, and sort of I would say Octavian Gratii is a gatekeeper in a good way, obviously for people to know if they're ready for these sort of tests. Like Oisin said, like if Jay thinks I'm ready for a Celtic title, I'm ready. If he doesn't think I'm ready for a Celtic title, wants me to have another one, I'm ready. He's just one of them. Have gloves, I'll fight. Just tell me what I'm doing.
Yeah, he just wants to fight. And sadly, I don't like when he does that. Being willing to fight anybody, but I felt the other night he had to just box long, and I was worried there the other night at times looking at him, but he came at the end of the fight. I was delighted he came through a lot of adversity the other night in regards. You're hitting a guy that's just constantly coming forward. He's crafty. With the cuts, he got cut in both eyes, and maybe I feel Oisin's heart and just that will to want to fight made that fight a lot more difficult. I would love to see him just box long, keep him at the end of his jab when Gratii come forward, catch him with shots to stop him coming forward and box and move. But again, if Oisin wants to fight and he wants to be fighting that style and he wants to be in them fights, that's his opinion. That's his choice. He can do what he wants to do with his fight. He is ready now for a Celtic fight. Will it be next? We don't know, but he is ready for Cathal because it's all about having the 6 rounder, maybe 2 6 rounders. You need to get you tested to make sure you have what it takes to push the 6 rounds. I think that fight 6 rounds. And
Um,
yes, please God, we can get them onto a big show in the summer, and maybe look at the options for the county title. Maybe not look at a county title the next one. Maybe in the back end of the year we get a stadium show, get them on a big platform and something like that. So yeah, look, Oisin has ticked all the boxes along the way through. He's a good kid, and I like Oisin. I have a close relationship with Oisin. I like his mannerism. I like the way he goes about his business, and he's a good kid.
the secret was revealed on Saturday night. Obviously, he had a debut on the card, Bayo Alabi. Obviously supposed to make his debut in February. Probably got the perfect debut. Obviously, he's boxed in the stadium. He's obviously won titles in the stadium. You know, he probably at times through the fight as you probably have your professional debut is you're chasing that stoppage. You want to impress. And he probably rushed his work at times, but dropped Stefan Nicolae twice in the fight, and sometimes it's very hard to do that with Stefan. We've seen at times he can be very negative, sort of on the back foot, but Bayo Bayo was just all guns blazing. He was like a steam train. He just wanted to keep coming.
Yeah, he's a gas kid. He is. You know, he's his own personality. To see I was laughing at that was when he first said it. You know what I mean? And that's why I had to throw it at him in the press conference. But he's a confident kid. He's he shows. Stefan Nicolae has been testing value before they put him down twice. Testing him to him. He's a great debut. He loved the moment. He's one of them kids that's made for the lights. He loves the lights. He loves to be. Oh man, you know what I mean? And he really enjoyed that. Again, a really good kid to deal with. Sometimes I don't know if I'm coming and going with him. Sometimes you're trying to get in touch with him, you can't get in touch with him. Then he comes back to you as if you haven't been ringing him 4 or 5 times or messaging him 4 or 5 times. He's his own personality, he's his own way of doing things, and he's a quirky kid. And as I said, I think he's made for the lights, so I think they'll have a bit of fun with him. I think he wants to box in Belfast in June, so I'd say that's the next time we'll see him.
I think he's going to be a torture for you in some ways, Jay, because he's going to be seeing fight cards, going to announce and going, Jay, I want that one. Jay, I want that one. Jay, I want that one. Like, the Kieran Malloy card in Galway, the Crocker Donovan card in Belfast. He probably might say, Jay, get me one of these cards in Riyadh. Like, he's probably just going to have you tortured and go, where's the big cards at, Jay? I want on the big cards. So sell the tickets. I want on the big cards.
Yeah, well, you can say that all he wants. The big cards, are hard to get. He has to do his apprenticeship. There's people ahead of him in the lines. You know what I mean? There's lads out there that we have that have had 4 or 5 fights and they've built from the ground right the way through. And to get on big cards, you need to be in meaningful fights. You need to be in real fights. You need to be in domestic fights. You need to be in good 50-50 fights. And he's not ready for them yet. He's only had one fight. So we need to find out his weight, what weight he's going to be doing, confirm that, get it locked in, and he'll be built. He'll box in Belfast in June, and then he'll be back down here. Then I think it's fight twice, maybe 3 times for 40 years now. Credit to him, he done great numbers on his tickets. So fair play to him for that, and he keeps doing that. He will box on as many cards as he wants to box on.
The country kid. He loves his country music, loves singing afterwards. But Cian really won't sing in a microphone for me just yet. But like Peter Brosky, obviously on Saturday night, as Cian said, he was coming in as a sort of unknown. He was sort of getting knocked out by the bigger guys in the division, and then knocking people out, the lower guys in the division. So it was sort of an ongoing quantity. But I thought obviously Cian, obviously in his first 6 rounder, showed his maturity within his first year of being a pro. Like he'll only had his debut in July upcoming. So he's 4 fights in already. He's ready past that 6 round stage. Obviously, I know that you're not connected to him in terms of management or something like that. You got him on the show, but like I'm not sure. He says he's in no rush. He's happy to take a couple of months off. Wayne Woods has said maybe potentially Galway. But a great performance from Cian on Saturday.
Yeah, good kid, Cian. Another Troy, very professional. A great family around them, fan base around them, and another kid, an honour to work with. Yeah, look, Cian has his team around them, whatever they want from him. I'm sure they'll reach out if they month to see if there's anything we can do for him. And again, another kid that does his tickets well. If he wants that, he wants to be stepped up at the end of the year to a Celtic title or something like that. We can find the right opponents for these kids. We can try. There's options there, and if whenever they're ready, if they want to reach out to me, Ian reaches out to me all the time and asks me this and that stuff. Again, if we're putting on the platforms, we only ask the lads to do the job. We need excellent tickets sold to make venues work, and if the lads willing to do it, I don't care who to sign. Put them on.
Cathal Crowley obviously has been very vocal. Obviously, I know in the build up, he was saying about he went to Emmet obviously and over in MMSG. Another one of them where Cathal's obviously been calling for fights and they sort of haven't happened for him. In some ways, Jay, where you're not signed to a big promoter, like a Matchroom or a Frank Warren, things like that. Sometimes it's hard to get fights, but I think Saturday night probably showed him that the likes of yourself can give him that platform. You want to do domestic fights, you want to come back to the stadium, you want to have good fights to come back to the stadium with. Like, obviously, I know Emmet Brennan sort of said afterwards that, if Cathal Crowley wants to reach out to Matchroom and try to get on the Crocker Donovan card and stuff like that,
Well, I just hold up on that. Why is Emmet Brennan reaching out saying, if Cathal Crowley wants to reach out to Matchroom to get them on the Crocker Donovan? Why does it have to be the Crocker Donovan card? Why does it have to be the Crocker Donovan card?
That's what I was going to say. Like that could be a main event on a stadium card. I'm not sure when you're looking at going there again, but that could be a perfect fight. An Irish title, super middleweight.
It could be on the undercard. It could be on the undercard of the show in the stadium. It could be on the undercard of the show in the warehouse. Could be, it's like who gives the right to say, if you want to reach out to a Matchroom, so what? Long you only fight the Crocker Donovan card. Is that it? Is it? Let me just tell you, Emmet Brennan doesn't have a promoter at the minute. He doesn't want a promoter at the minute, I believe he's been saying, and that's fine. But when you're in a position where you don't have a promoter, you can't really call the shots on how big of the card you're on. You kind of have to take what you're given, or you have to pay to go on the show and things like that. So again, I don't have a relationship with either one of the fighters. I don't have a connection with either one of the fighters. But again, that was what I said earlier on. That's the way I told you on that one there. It's again, you know what I mean? If the fellas are willing to fight anywhere, it's whatever we're going to fight. It doesn't always have to be, the Crocker Donovan card, so it doesn't happen that way. It doesn't happen. You know what I mean? Look, we're on from that one. Again, I don't know. It's a fight that would do. I'm sure it would do well in the stadium if it was, and it could main event the stadium. But Paul Loonam and Myles Casey could have headlined the stadium tonight. But it was a third fight down on the card. Both boys didn't mind where it wasn't the card. They just wanted the fight. And if I had made that fight in the warehouse, or I had made that fight in another venue, the boys would have wanted the fight. And Cronin and Crowley is no bigger fight than that was. It's also no bigger fight than Declan and Senan was. And both of them boys were willing to fight in the warehouse in November, the warehouse in February, and they were willing to fight. They ended up being headline in the stadium. So when you're a boxer, as I said earlier on, I'm not just saying on this one, when you're a boxer, you shouldn't have an ego that you only want to fight these so-called big cards. Fight anywhere. Boxing is boxing. Once there's a ring, once you get your fans there, no matter how many tickets you sell, doesn't matter where it is. So as I said earlier, boxers need to forget that. If we can get it on the Crocker and Donovan card, I seen another one the other day. It was,
Cian Lewis was.
Cian Lewis was the same. You know what I mean? So let's see when these cards, when the Crocker Donovan card comes out and these fights stop. What card are they going to put them on then? You'll be sitting at home on the couch waiting to see the Matchroom do another card and pray and plead and go online screen for Matchroom to put them on the card. Look, I know Emmet does seems to do tickets and things like that, so that helps. But I don't know how many tickets you do in Belfast. Belfast, Dublin is a total different catfish. For Cathal to do tickets from Cork all the way to Belfast as well. Matchroom or promoter like we're a promoter, and it needs to make sense. And making sense to Matchroom is financial sense and putting bums on seats in the arena. So although it could be a great fight, if between them they can only do 100, 150 tickets or 200 tickets, and I wouldn't think they do much more than 200 tickets between them in Belfast. you add up the cost on 200 tickets, and then what the purses they're going to want to fight and all. Would it make sense to match them? You might get a little fella down the road making his debut that could do 150 tickets with a lot less outcomes, and therefore it makes more sense to match them, you know? And that's sadly where boxers sometimes don't realise the sport, don't realise the business of the sport. And jumping online social media calls saying all about these cards, which again beggars can't be choosers.
Finally, obviously, then David Kennedy. Obviously, if one of them started the night, and I guess it shows like there's no easy fights in your cards at times. You know, Badr Karami obviously was seen came in and dropped Jason Hardy obviously in the warehouse. He obviously fought Kevin Yargo last year in the SSE and gave him a really tough fight. Although it was sort of given as an 8-0 sort of fight that night in the SSE, it wasn't that type of fight. Like David obviously had to come through adversity in that fight. Obviously, he got dropped. Karami obviously got deducted a point. Rightfully, there was quite a lot of warnings for shots to the back of the head, but probably the scorecards, you know, could have been one of them. It could have went either way. You know, I think it was given as 38-36. So obviously Kennedy won 3 rounds.
36, I think.
38-36.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So David Kennedy was obviously given 3 rounds, and Karami obviously was only given the first round from dropping him, but lost down the point. But that shows, I guess, good for David in the long term because he's come through the adversity early on rather than having an opponent that they're just a walking punch bag pretty much for him at times.
Yeah, look, Cram is a bit of a strange character when it comes to the throwing off. Sometimes he throws up something. Like, he's a middleweight. Like, he fought Jason Hardy at middleweight. So I didn't think there was any danger for him. I think he's good. I think he's decent. But I didn't think he was going to be decent. Like, when I reached out to make a couple of matches, his name was put forward, and it was like the max weight he'd go to was 178, i.e., no heavier than that, that's too high even for him. You know, he can do 72, 73. So I was thinking, 5 kilos. Dave should be well too strong. And Dave looked really good in his debut as well. So I was thinking, yeah, Dave should be well big enough and strong enough for him. Now he's been out of the ring for a while and that as well. And the whole lot, like, I was worried. I ended up putting nearly in the ring screaming and trying to get David just to work his jab. Don't fight him. Just keep booking your jab. And there was a big crowd at the time as well. So I think maybe the crowd might have got to David a little bit. There was a few hundred in the place for the first fight, and I don't know if the moment got to him, and then he was caught, and when he went down, obviously that's adversity that he'd never probably felt before in his life, amateur or pro, and you could tell he was shocked. You know what I mean? He was getting a lot of shots in the back. Even knockdown was a shot in the back there, and that can kind of unsettle you a little bit. So, look, he came through the fight. It looks brilliant for him now that he came through the fight. He got a win in a fight that's going to only teach him and only better him. And he might go away from that and go, right, I actually thought I was at this level, or I thought I was fit, this fitness, or I thought I was this good, and the whole lot. I need to watch that back and see where I went wrong and go, right, I need to knuckle down a little bit harder. I need to learn a little bit more on this, and I need to learn a little bit more on that. And that will benefit the fighter. It's exactly what happened then. Then was 8 rounds fit. He wasn't 8 rounds fit at the pace that Charly Lopez was set. So he knows for the next one, when he does rematch him, he's going to have to run through a wall in camp to make sure that he can move his feet, he can get off the ropes and things like that. So Dave, I'm sure he'll be saying to him, no, okay, I made mistakes in this area, I made mistakes in that area, and I have to fix them. So again, a massive learning for him, which will only better his career.
Yes, obviously, I know you sort of said you're helping GBM now with their show, which looks like it's going to be at the end of June. I think they're still mixed between either the Friday or the Saturday.
No, I know the date. It is happening, and it will be announced on the 30th of this month. Because there will be a press conference on the 30th of this month. So the card is definitely happening. There's I had a meeting with Izzy Mitchell yesterday, and I've been chatting to them on and off for the last 6 months about when we were supposed to come last year, probably more than 6 months ago. It was last September when I was away on holidays. I had a call with them over the potential show last year, but it is happening. The show, it's going to be a great show. And after a meeting yesterday, they've asked me would I work with them on the card. Not just they asked me, they originally was supposed to help me on the card, but now I'm actually going to work with them on the card. Because again, I'm the man on the ground over here. I have all the contacts in regards what we need to run a show, logistics and things like that. So I'm going to help them with that end of things because the company coming in that obviously don't know the Irish market and that. So yeah, I will be helping them working on the card. Myself and Mitchell have been left to build the card. So that was Izzy's word yesterday, where look, between you and Mitchell, I want you to build the card. You know, used to have the final say on the card. So we're now working on the card. We have 4 or 5 potential matches that we're looking at making. We have reached out to 1 or 2 of the teams to put them fights together. We're hoping to have the card built this week, next week, latest, ahead of the press conference on the 30th. And we'll announce them fights will be announced and stuff like that. So yeah, the card's definitely happening.
When do you expect, obviously, your announcement for Belfast? I'm guessing, obviously, pretty much maybe similar to what you were doing with the last show, maybe potentially John Boyd headlining the card in the Devonish.
Yeah, most likely John will headline the card. The opponent is yet to be picked. I need to talk to John again. John was down the other night. I had him down as a guest the other night. I have a good relationship with John, quite friendship, more of a friendship relationship with John than a manager boxer. We actually were up there last week with him at the Podge show, and myself and the Wheels were with John and Carly for the night. And again, we invited them down last week for our show, and they were down, and again they were with us last week. So I would look at John headlining. I think John is ready for a Celtic title. Richie O'Leary and Sean, the winner of that, I had said I would try to get the Celtic title. So, potentially Richie's in the position now. So potentially Richie against John for the Celtic title is an option. But that all depends on the situation with Glen and Charly Lopez. Are we rematching that? Or are we going down the route with James Freeman? Ian has to come back to me today to confirm the James Freeman, but the talks on that are advanced and they're very close. So that fight would make more sense in Ireland because it's 2 Irish kids. So for revenue, for tickets and things like that, it makes more sense to a promoter, and that would make sense. However, I will look to rematch Charly Lopez. Maybe at the end of the year, if Glen does go down the road and he does fight James in the summer, we potentially may look at bringing in an international title and having Glen and Charly Lopez fight for that at the end of the year on our end of the year show. We can get the stadium booked. So there's a lot going on in the background. There is a lot of stuff happening at the minute, and there's a couple of other shows that we are kind of being talking about in the minute with other people. And yeah, look, things are good at the minute.
Well, look, Jay, obviously I know the timer's about to run out again. Obviously, we're not.
One fight that you left out there with Glen Lynch.
Glen Lynch, sorry, I do apologise.
Glen Lynch, another. He was I said it with all the lads, but Glen was exceptional for the whole time. From the day I met Glen, I didn't know Glen. I just was at his debut. Obviously, I didn't know him. I wished him well in fights and things like that. But the deal with him, very professional guy, really good. I used to be down and coming a little bit to Deco and things like that. Glen's there, trains really hard. The dealing with him in regards to tickets, his deal, everything's spot on from start to finish. So, and I thought he put in a great performance. I think Glen is a little secret there that people, are kind of don't think he's being noticed as much as he should. He is an absolute unit at the weight, and I think he's going to be really good. I think he has a big future in the sport. And again, it was a pleasure to work with him. Him and his team, there's no issues whatsoever. Great, really professional, and I just wanted to give him a mention as well. It's hard to be a loyal float, but I did put the offer to him last week and said, look, this is where you are on the card. But if you want to be a loyal float, which I would like you to be, because I want to reward you for the tickets sold. But the only problem is you may have to wait till after 11 o'clock to fight, after Deco fights. And he slept on it and came back and said, no, look, I want to take it. And he got prime time slots, so I'm delighted for him. Cool kid.
Definitely. Well, look, I know there's only about 40 seconds left here, and we're not doing a third one, but I thank you, obviously, for your time, as always. I'll let you get back to your day job, and we'll look forward to, obviously, hearing, hopefully, plenty of fight news incoming very soon.
Yeah, 100%. I'll tell you a few things getting announced in the next week. Belfast will be announced in the next week or so. I've got to give the designers a little bit of time off.
Yeah. Well, listen, thanks very much for your time, Jay. I'll speak to you soon.
Thanks for your talk soon, Paul.
Cheers, take care. Thanks. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye.